This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined today by my colleague, Malcolm Jolly, and someone we haven't seen in quite some time, Mr. Donald Ziraldo. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you, Jamie and Malcolm. It's good to see you guys again. I think last time, Jamie, you and I were at the Dorona Distinguished Restaurants in North America gala we put on a little lunch with chefs and wineries from the region at the Vineland Research and Innovation Center. That was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's some time
Many
ago.
years ago.
How have you been weathering the storm? I was very happy to see the other day that you have returned to your roots at Inniskillin.
Well, what happened was, you know that Constellation bought Vincor / Inniskillin back in 2006.
Right.
Let me see when it was, about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, Teachers Pension Fund bought back from Constellation all the Canadian operations, including Inniskillin.
Yes.
Jay Wright, the president of Arterra, which is the sort of new organization that was Vincor, basically, called me and said, Donald, would you mind coming back and helping us kind of resurrect the Inniskillin brand? And I said, absolutely, Jay, I'd be happy. I'm still here and I still live on the property. So
yes,
walk up. And I said, but I would really appreciate if at the same time I move my production of Ziraldo ice wine from Rife Winery, where I was doing it, which is
right. Yes, yeah.
And because the consumers were getting confused there, they were saying, Ziraldo, what's he doing here? He should be down at Inniskillin. So we did that, and we did a video, which is what they wanted me to do. And a cute story, because Kaiser, my partner, the genius behind Ice Wine,
yes.
Carl had passed, so they had to get an actor. So they said, Donald, you had hair back then and you were a little younger, so is it okay if we get an actor to play you? And I thought, well, I guess so,
Oh, so this is a dramatization of the two. I see, yeah.
Heritage Minute.
Have you seen it?
So what do you do?
I make Canadian wine.
No, really, what do you do?
So that was going to be the kind of launch of the announcement and everything. All of a sudden, COVID hit. And then everything stopped. So we put it on hold. They were going to do some major renovations at the winery at my request, because it's 40 some years old and it needed to be updated and so on. And
right.
So we put everything on hold, and we've been kind of sitting around twiddling our thumbs. Inniskillin, even right now, is closed because of COVID. Hopefully open up in a couple weeks again. So we thought, spring coming, the opening coming, let's make the announcement. It was leaking out anyways. And then also I vinified the 2020 ice wine, Ziraldo, at Inniskillin, January 30th. And the winemaker, just so that nobody would confuse Bruce Nicholson making the Inniskillin ice wine, I brought Marco Piccoli in as my winemaker. And there's a great story about Marco coming from Friuli, which is my hometown.
That's where you come from, yes.
Right. So Marco came here to do a stage, and long story short, he stayed, met a girl, of course. That was the anchor that kept him here. And he's done extremely well. He was previously the winemaker at Jackson Triggs, and then he's now head of all the Arterra wine production, and I picked him out. He's Friulano. We talk the same language.
Yes.
He's very, very passionate about wine. He's been a great superstar here in the industry, up and coming young winemaker. So that kind of brings you up to speed on how it all came about. And I'm kind of looking forward to this summer to hopefully have you and a lot of friends come back down, and we can share a glass of wine. I can just walk up, or you can walk over to the house and meet my son Aspen, who's now 8 years old.
Oh boy, yes.
That's what I was doing in the interim, taking care of that guy, or he was taking care of me, one or the other.
So what plans do you have for this revitalization of Inniskillin?
Well, the plans that Arterra has is to spend a very significant amount of money to redo the old piazza courtyard and sort of augment the food and hospitality experience. And my role, just my intent is just to sort of be here at the winery. I'm not going to go and do the global 200-day a year,
right,
around the world selling it. But I'm just there to support the group. Bruce, unfortunately, I should probably share you this. Bruce had a heart attack, a mild one, so he's okay, but he's back. So that's just some trade news. But really, that's all my role is. And then putting the Ziraldo ad in Inniskillin, it just made a lot of sense because I'm there and I can now do both. And the initial launch is a gift pack that we put together of the 219 Inniskillin ice wine and the 214 Ziraldo ice wine from my little vineyard that I went back and planted at the original Inniskillin wine site. So that'll be available in the boutique because there's a very small quantity left of that. And we put it in a gift pack. The reason we had to do it, it's one of those technical difficulties that we had to overcome. You cannot sell a wine made under a manufacturing permit at another winery manufacturing permit. So the law doesn't allow Ziraldo ice wine to be sold at Inniskillin, having been made at Rife back in 214. So we got creative, and what we did was we went back. One of the young legals at Arterra picked up on it, and we had done it. Gee, I bet you it's 30 some years ago. We were trying to do a gift pack with the local wineries, and instead of us sending somebody from Inniskillin to Chateau de Charme or to Consulman, we wanted to do a little gift pack. And so we got around the law because that they allowed us to do it. So we put a bottle of each in a 3-pack. And so that's kind of what we went back and are doing the same thing. So that'll be available once the winery opens here at Inniskillin. And there's only some, I don't think there's, let me think, I've got to do the numbers 6 times 50. There's only about 300 gift packs of that, and that'll be it. So once that's gone, then we'll move into the 219 Vidal, which will be available, and the 220, which, as I mentioned to you, we did January 30th, very late, for ice wine, well, quite late. And by that time, with the drought that we'd had in the summer, which had reduced the crop, the birds and the dehydration and freezing, the crop was 50% of what it should have been.
Right.
So
Which
I
is
probably
already
should.
low.
Yeah, it's pretty low. I mean, I should charge $300 a bottle, but I think I'll have to stick to the 89. So $89.
And I went back into the Good Food Revolution archives, and it was actually 10 years ago a little bit more, February 2011, that we walked through those original Inniskillin vineyards that I guess you were talking about the 2014 ice wine coming from. What's going on with that plot?
So what happened is I went back and I literally took out a 60-year-old orchard, and I thought I was going to go back and go back to farming. That was 207 I planted it, because 206 I left Inniskillin, and we planted it to 5 clones of Riesling from New York State, from what's his name's plot. I'm trying to think of his name now. A German wine producer that kind of launched Vinifera. That's right, Constantine Frank. Thank you. And I got some from Geisenheim, of course, and some others from Trier. So the 5 clones were put on 4 rootstocks, and in collaboration with the Cool Climate Enology and Viticulture Institute, they monitored it over a 5-year program to see, which would be most compatible, and various research pieces to see how the different clones would produce. And they made ice wine. Amy at the Vineland, who's now at the Vineland Research Station, also vinified. So we got some good research results out of that. And that was the basis for the wine. That's why there's a limited production of some 6,000. Now, here's a cute story. The 2020, somebody, and we're not going to blame anybody, but somebody went and harvested before we netted it. So it was gone. I went over there one day and there was no grapes left. I thought, guys, what the hell happened? And of course, when everybody's out picking, they're just, it's a rush to get things done and so on. Anyway, somehow it got picked. So I had to source the 220 from a neighbor. And so it won't be from that original vineyard, but I hope to go back there again this year and do it. So, but it was amazing because the quality, I must tell you, I tasted it last Friday with Marco, and it blew me away. I was extremely pleased with it. Having it just started the first vintage, etc. I thought, well, and with the crop being that low, the sugar is 300.8 grams per liter.
That's up there.
Which is, yeah, it's up there. I mean, Carl, always said, too much sugar is not good either, because then you throw off the balance. But in this case, the Mother Nature not only concentrated the sugars, but also concentrated the acid. So the acid sugar balance, which is the great secret to ice wine, which is what Carl really had a handle on, it is perfect in the 2020. So I'm really, really, really pleased with the quality of it, and it'll be bottled shortly. It was ready quite quickly, as all the 2020s are. And I don't know if you've tasted any of the 2020s, but I did taste a Cab Franc from Kevin Papagazza. I screwed up his name probably.
Yes, yeah.
It's not Italian, so I struggled with it. And I tasted his 220 Cab Franc, and he did some Appassimento. Amazing wine. I really think this will turn the conversation about red wines in Niagara around, because there's always been that sort of, they make great white wines, but the reds, they got to work on well. This is the year that it's really going to show.
So in these intervening years, I'm sure you've been sort of looking over your garden fence and seeing what's been going on at Inniskillin. For those people who are interested in that mixed pack there, how would you describe the differences in the glass between the Ziraldo ice wine and the Inniskillin ice wine?
Taste it.
Okay, I mean, that's a good answer, but how would you describe these differences? Because I'm sure you've been tasting them.
That's always a struggle, because you're looking, well, who's better, not better. I mean, stylistically, I'd honestly have to put the two of them side by side and taste them, because I haven't done that. I tasted the 2020, so I have not tasted the Inniskillin 219. I should have. I will now that because next time I get asked the question, I'll have the answer.
All right. Okay.
You know what would be a good idea if we did it collectively, and then we got a real consensus, because me giving you an opinion of my own wine is like asking me about my son. My son, your son, give us a comparison. Well, my son's much smarter. He's, et cetera, et cetera. So those are my babies. So it's kind of hard to compare to others. And, even when I got asked about that other times,
yes,
it's not that I tried to avoid the question, but each character, not only in the vineyard, because you've got the terroir that expresses itself, then you've got the winemaker whose input is very significant, and Mother Nature. So all of those things combined lend itself to make unique wine. And that's one of the reasons that I asked Marco to be the winemaker, because what I didn't want the consumer, the media, to say, oh yeah, sure, Bruce Nicholson made the ice wine for Inniskillin, and he also made the wine for Ziraldo, and how different can it be? So this way you've got two winemakers that have put their personal signature on it, under my supervision, of course, as I did with Carl. With Carl, I didn't have to ever think about it, because I was always I had an easy job with him. He made it, and he made it so well. I just had to go and sell it. It was a pretty easy job, because it was always like people taste it and go, oh, wow. So that was an easy part. I'm sure it'll be just as good this time, and just as easy for me to do that with Marco being the winemaker.
Well, I look forward to tasting. Sorry, I'll let you go.
No, I was going to say, and I'll also, be doing both, because when I go up, I'll have both at my disposal, both the Ziraldo and the Inniskillin at Inniskillin, and focus on the ice wine, which is where my heart really is. I spent many of my latter years traveling around the world promoting ice wine, which people really get. Canada, cold, mountains, snowing, so on, ice.
Well, just I had that one question for you, which was I got the feeling that maybe in the last 20 years, Canadian wine people were kind of shy about ice wine because that amazing Inniskillin ice wine that won the award put Niagara on the map for wine. That if you go abroad, people would mention it and we'd say, oh yeah, but we make really nice Riesling too, or Chardonnay, or whatever else. But do you feel like maybe we've come full circle and now we can have a bit more pride in our ice wine and don't be so neurotic about it?
Well, Malcolm, I know that I hear that a lot, even from my colleagues. They say, Ziraldo, like you're traveling all over the place. Can't you just promote a little bit of our table wine too? And I'm like, yeah, really, guys, it's an umbrella to me. Because I'll give you an example. Tribeca Grill in New York City. When I was down there, Paul Greco was the food and beverage manager at the time. And then the guy that took over from him, I can't remember his name. I kept going back and saying, how we doing? I'd pop in. He said, Ziraldo, please. He says, we've got lots of other things to do, a lot of other winemakers to talk to. We have your Cab Franc Inniskillin, we have your Riesling, we have your Vidal. Like, give me a break. Like, do you have any maybe table wines you want to sell us? And I said, yeah, actually we do, but we aren't quite there yet with promoting them globally. And he said, well, let's taste them. And he said, and don't bring me our entry level, because he said, you set the bar so high with the pricing on the ice wine, you can come right in there with premium. So we sent him our vineyard bottling, the Seeger and closed vineyard. And that was kind of our first table wine. And I think of it, like I said, as an umbrella. Like Sauvignon Blanc is to New Zealand, Malbec to Argentina, Cabernet Sauvignon to California, Chardonnay to Burgundy. So ice wine is to Canada. And then, of course, everybody has other wines. And as the industry evolves, I think there's going to be a significant amount of specialization. We tend in the new world to be very broad spectrum in our production of wines, everything from Gamay to Riesling to Pinot Grigio. And I think everybody's starting now to sort of sort out what they do best and what the consumer respects, like Rife with Riesling, Cave Springs with Chardonnay, young Kevin with Cabernet Franc. And I think that's going to start to become of significance, that the winemakers are going to be more selective about which wines they do. Like in Europe, where it's in some cases it's one wine, even by law, in Bordeaux and Burgundy.
Briefly going back to that heritage moment, the heritage minute, the video that was shot, the dramatization of Carl and yourself, who ended up playing you in that?
I don't know his name. He's an actor, and you'll see it. And he's not that famous that I know of, so maybe this will make him famous.
I was about to say, yeah.
Well, they did such a great job. The director, who's on, another thing, I'm going to make some notes here. You guys are prepping me for my interviews, my other interviews. So I'm going to get the name of the director. He did an amazing job, and he came down, spent a lot of time. A young lady named Laura, who was the brand manager for Arterra, they spent an enormous amount of time. It also prompted me to sort of revisit the scrapbooks, which there are 900 pages in the scrapbooks, which Debbie Pratt, who you remember was my
yes, of course,
art director, and Debbie's retired now, but she came back and helped me, and we've cleaned them all up, taken out stuff that's redundant, put in some interesting other things, laminated them. They're at the binders right now. There's only one left, I think, in Canada that I found, and I digitized it, so I could technically send you the entire 900 pages, having digitized, and that kind of gives you all of the heritage and the background of Inniskillin, and it'll be available to people so that they don't have to come down here. And that's what I was doing during this lockdown. It was actually something that I probably wouldn't have done or had time to do if it wouldn't have been for that.
Well,
silver lining.
You've certainly been busy during the pandemic. That's good. Mr. Ziraldo, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. It's great to see you again. And it's strange because I can remember when you retired in 2006, you've come back to center stage looking younger than ever.
Thank you. You know, flattery will get you everywhere.
You told me that once before. Thank you very much, Donald. Bye for now.
Jamie. Welcome. Hopefully, we'll share a glass of that 2020 here in my backyard when things clear up.
That would be a
I
lot of
hope
fun.
so. I hope so soon.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.